So hi everyone. I know I've taught some of you, so please do come say hi and remind me of where you're from. And you're welcome to say hi if I haven't taught you as well. So I'm hoping this won't be too technical. I'm wanting to give you an insight into a sort of passion that I had for many years and then developed into a focus. And my screen is not moving. The professor of computer science cannot work the computer. Okay. Great. So don't worry, I'm not going to talk about this too much. I just want to give you an idea that what my original focus is, which for complicated reasons is in computational chemistry. So what my main research is in, which I'm not going to talk about tonight because it requires far too much sort of backstory and explanation, but I work on vaccines actually modeling the chemical components of vaccines, but particularly carbohydrates. If you're interested in that, please come to talk to me about it afterwards. But that's my main research area in computer science. It's very much an applied field, and it's within computational science. I also have other areas I'm interested in. Because of my main research area, I'm interested in parallel and high performance computing, and that's where most of my teaching is at the moment. So I teach about multi-threading in Java at second year. At third year I teach threads as well mostly, and honors I teach high performance computing, and at a master's level I teach visualization, which is really what I'm going to talk a bit about. And visualization I got into originally because I wanted to explain my research to other people and myself. Okay, so the thing is with visualization is that the standard visualization for carbohydrates would be something like this. And that's quite hard to see the particular important aspects of the molecule, which are the rings. So some students and I developed this visualization and then another visualization of the backbone. So I was quite interested in visualization throughout my PhD and the beginning of my job at UCT. I've been there for 20 years now. So this developed more and more, and the visualization is crucially important to me to explain the modeling results to the people who care about the results but don't understand modeling, which is usually the people developing the vaccines. So it's been very important to me and to get this right, because otherwise you're not talking in the same language at all and you don't understand each other. So it was very important for getting funding and for getting papers published. But you know, so where my life advice comes from, and I don't really feel I'm qualified to give general life advice except perhaps in this one area, because I followed a very specific path, which was a strange one, jumping between computer science and chemistry the whole time. But you can work very, very hard at something for a very long time and then get some kind of crisis point which triggers you feeling that there's something missing. You know, you've done all of this, but this is not only me. You know, there's something else. I have other things to offer, and that is not articulated in my job, and I'm feeling boring or you know, unfulfilled. And I definitely had this for various external reasons and internal reasons, that I started to feel that maybe I needed to quit. My message also is you better think very long and hard before you quit something you've spent at that point, you know, 10 years doing. Okay, because you underestimate how much you have gained, your investment in that. It's, you know, whether it's a relationship or a career, try not to quit. Try to make it better. Okay, that's basically the advice I can offer, really. And I do think it's worthwhile. I don't think that me quitting my job to paint full time if my husband had let me do that. And I say that in a very feminist way, but you have a partnership, and if one of you stops paying the bills, and you both meant to be paying the bills, and you've got 2 kids to raise, they will be justifiably unhappy with you. Okay, so you may not have a coach. One of my sort of life grievances, and I don't have a lot, but one of them is I've never had a mentor. I've never had a coach. I've had very good family. I've had a fantastic husband, fantastic parents, but I've never had someone to help me. I've had anti-mentors, quite a few of those, okay, and they did make me stronger. But if you don't have a mentor, because you're following a particular path and you don't have someone who's supportive, books can help. I know it sounds very nerdy, but they really can. And they can be general books, so books that really help me. This deep work made me realize how to really focus on research. So if you're doing anything hard, it's a fantastic book written by Cal Newport, who's a professor of computer science as well in the States. And this book had very, very good tips for me on how to focus. Just dealing with a whole lot of stuff at once, which academia is a bit like, got lots of roles, lots of things to do. This is an old book, but it's been updated. He still has very, very good advice, to-do lists and so on. Practical things. But this book, called Designing Your Life, by the authors in the D School in Stanford, really helped me. So if you're at a crossroads in life, this book is about applying the school's, the methods of design to figuring out what you want to do. So I did the exercises in this book, and they make you kind of plot your classic career path, professor eventually, an alternative, joining a tech company for me, or the crazy idea, giving it all up and painting full time. But then what the book made me realize is that you can maybe do some of that in your actual job without giving it up. Maybe you can make it work in your job. And then this book was actually, I wanted some theory about how to incorporate my art into, which was a passionate hobby of mine, into my work. And so, would make me feel bit more that my right brain was getting some exercise and not just the left brain. So your right brain is traditionally the way the artistic, creative side is, and your left brain is analytical. And the left brain was the boss for most of my life. Okay. But I had been doing oil painting, so I've spent 15 years oil painting now. Okay. I do it a lot. I'm obsessed. And when I started, I did actually feel that my right brain was fed up and very angry with me. So I actually had to work through a lot of that. But it made me also realize, I'm very much a trained scientist, analytical stuff. And there's a lot in art that you can discount as a scientist. Processes, creativity, ways of thinking that are actually equally valid and very important. Okay, so I thought about this. It's not hobbies or work, or can I make my hobby my work? It's hobbies and work. Okay, so what I did was start reading about theories of visualization and how to present information in a graphical way that's compelling. And I really like this quote. Edward Tufte, I looked up today how to actually pronounce his name, is the grandfather of visualization. He's got some very beautiful books. And he has this quote: "Science and art have in common intense seeing, the wide-eyed observing that generates empirical information." If you want to paint a portrait, you have to really look at someone. Okay, if you want to understand your data, you have to really understand your data and see what's going on. So I really like that, and I read a lot about visualization. So I'm going to give you like a little tiny potted summary of what I do in my master's course on this. But I decided to give a master's course in visualization, and it has hugely enriched my work life. Okay, it's not art, but it's informed by my art, and I feel more satisfied at work as a result of it. And so the main message of there's a whole lot of books you can read, but these two I found very useful. Colin Ware is one of the big publishers in Visualisation. It's a very easy to read book if you're keen on that. And Edward Tufte is, as I say, one of the original people who published on visualization. And visualization is really how to present data in a way that people can easily understand it and explore it. And it's important for all of you, for anyone who's trying to present some numbers in ways that people will understand. So the problem is that people tend to do it pretty badly. They try and make it art and not facts, science. Okay, so what these books focus on is how to make a visualization draw your attention to the data, not how you did the visualization, the methodology, how you designed it, some wow factor, but how do you communicate your message to your audience in ways that they understand and actually think what you did was pretty valuable, or that you've got a point, you've noticed a trend, and so on. So this is why I thought this, as aside from my other topics, was something that I can tell all of you about and spread the word. Okay. So visualization should represent data in a way that makes it easy to understand the data and quickly understand the data. So there are a lot of visualizations that don't do this. They are pretty but ineffective, and they look good for reasons that aren't to do with the data but are to do with the visual impact of it. So this is quite an attractive 3D visualization. 3D visualizations seldom work except by drawing people's attention. Okay, so they look good for reasons that are, to do with the style, the very pleasant colors here, the grays, the 3D, the sort of yellow peaks. But when you look at the data, which is about wealth in the USA, which is hard to see because it's actually rotated the map, it's very hard to figure out what's going on here, you realize that the way they designed this, the prettiness of it, is actually in conflict with the purpose of the visualization, which is to let you understand what's going on here. So extracting information from this visualization, which won some prize, which is why it's here, is really hard, which makes it a bad visualization. And it's not particularly good art either. So Edward Tufte also says, it's all right to decorate construction, but never to construct decoration. Okay, so once you've built a good visualization, you can then try and make it look as attractive as possible, but the attractiveness mustn't be the purpose of the visualization. So here's another one, which is censorship in Iran visualized as carnations or something, and it is this also won a prize. I looked it up in 2022. Information is Beautiful site. They awarded this appalling visualization a prize because it looks pretty. It's little mosaicy flowers, but it's really, really hard. How many people were killed? This is actually quite serious information as well. So, representing it as a flower is perhaps a bit insensitive as well. Okay, but it's another, and you will find these all over the place. So I cannot believe how many people work in visualization and don't think about, can people understand my data quickly? So there are really, the classic good visualization is a tube map in London. But there are lots of examples of really good ones. But a tube map, the whole point of it is to get you to figure out how to get from A to B. And it's most important if you don't know London, as I don't. Okay. So, if you are somewhere, you need to be able to follow which line to go to, and so on. So subway maps are generally actually pretty good as a visualization. And they're not unattractive if done properly. In fact, people have this on their wall. But their point is that they are tools to work with. So effective visualizations are ways of making you think faster, explore the data, understand the data, suck it in, process it, come to conclusions rapidly. Okay, if they're not doing that, they're not working. So the human visual system is very important that you understand it, how it works for good visualizations, but there's summaries in all these books. But basically, the main point is that visualizations, if they work, are incredibly powerful because half our brain is devoted to seeing. It's the only channel that we get information in that's in parallel. You know, I can be talking, seeing people's expressions, seeing motion. A whole lot of information is coming from the audience at the same time to me. We are very, very good at processing multiple channels of information in our brains. Okay, because half our brain, roughly, is devoted to that. And our brain is optimized to extract useful information rapidly from the environment. Very, very quickly. And we're not actually aware of how we do this. So that's really why people design poor visualizations, is because we don't actually know how we see. Okay, so if we understand how we do this, we can design better visualizations. So I'm not going to give you my whole course, 6-week course in one night, but I just want to give you an example that we're not good at judging area. Humans are provably very bad at judging area. So all those bubble plots that you see are actually not very effective. Okay, we tend to underestimate area. There's a famous paper in 1976 where they measured this. We underestimate area, which is why you think a big pizza isn't quite as big as it is. Okay, and we are very accurate with length. Almost one-on-one, you know, very accurate, but area we underestimate. All of these on the top row here are 50%. So that's 50%. It doesn't look like 50% to me. It looks more like 75%. Huh? All of them. The only one where we accurately judge it as 50% is this one, because that one we're actually looking at the length of one side, and we can see it's halfway. We're good with length. So and there's 25%, 75%. So the message really is, as soon as you're showing something with area, you need to think very hard, could you show it with length rather? Because the area we're not going to judge very well. We're even worse with volume, which is why 3D visualizations are really bad. Okay. So, another example, I'm only giving you two here, are color sequences. So people like this color sequence where you're plotting blockage in an artery here, shear stress, from blue to red. Okay, and this rainbow color sequence is the most popular one. It's the default for a lot of people, but it's not very effective because what they're wanting to spot is the areas of high stress, which in this case the way they've done the color plotting is actually the blue. Okay. And it's much easier to spot in the other color mapping, which just goes from white through red to black. That's a much easier thing for us to understand because it feels like more. Okay, these should actually be flipped the other way. So this one also, these weird ridges don't actually have any meaning. So they're just part of the color mapping. So another example is that you need to be quite careful which color maps you use in a visualization if you want to do it accurately. So understanding all of this has helped me generate better graphics for my papers, but I'm going to skip through this because I think I'm running out of time. But I want to also make you realize that it's very hard to say that this way of doing something is better than that way. So I'm wanting to say to you, you should never use a pie chart. And I've put that in a talk before because it upsets people, because they like pie charts. People love pie charts. We love circles, but they're not very good at visualizing things. We like them for reasons that aren't to do with how well they express data. So how do I tell you that one visualization is better than another? Well, I'm going to use this as an example, but basically you want to see which questions does someone answer the visualization and how quick are they to answer. So I picked this because we all care about how much groceries cost. This is from the Outlier, which is quite a nice visualization web page in South Africa. This is their grocery basket. This is how they visualize it on the web page. They actually have a lot of data. I'm not going to go into all of that. They go all the way back to August. It's quite interesting. But they don't plot a time sequence or anything for it. They just show it like this, total basket. Okay, and I actually put the grocery basket there so that you know what it's about. Okay, so that's not in the original. But they're basically showing Spar, Pick n Pay, ShopRite, Checkers, Woolworths, Food Lovers, and how much white bread, sunflower oil, maize meal, sugar, milk, rice, flour, bath soap, and toilet paper cost. So a little basket of goods. How much would it cost if you went to Spar? Interestingly, Woolworths actually in February isn't that much. So that's interesting. That's something you discover from the data. But how can we improve this? You need to frame important questions that viewers will ask of the data and then show how easy they are to answer in different options. Okay, so you could say, which is the most expensive shop? So that's easy to answer visually, and its length. So that's easy to see. Very easy to answer. Which items are the most expensive? Well, that's actually not in their visualization. They've just given us the table. And we have to go and look up and compare all the items, and that takes a while. Which items vary the most least in price? That's also going to require us to look at the numbers. Not optimal. We should be showing that visually. Which is the best place to buy milk? Well, you can go look down the milk, and it is ShopRite. Yes. Okay, but you have to jump backwards and forwards to answer it. It takes a while. For which items is Woolworths the cheapest? So you have to look at Woolworths and compare up the row for each one. That's going to take a long time. So this should be visualized. They shouldn't just be visualizing this. They should visualize that as well as a graph. Which graph? So I just roughed it in here. These are three options. I'm not saying any of them is perfect. It's just like if you were going to pick which of these, which do you pick? Okay, so we have the pie chart. It really hurt doing that one. And this one where we just plotting all the items, and this one where we plot the items and the total as little bar charts. Okay. So, which is the most expensive shop? So the pie charts, I've also done what they often do with pie charts, is scale the pie chart according to price. So one of them is a bit bigger than the others. Is a Spar. It's not that easy to see though, and it's not easy to see how much. Whereas in this one, you can see Spar is actually the most expensive, which at the bottom. It's much easier to compare the length here. Okay, if you wanted to ask which items are the most expensive, so here you can compare all of them. It's by far the easiest with this one, right? You just look for the highest. So it's sunflower oil, because of the war with Ukraine, apparently, and toilet paper. Okay, you can do it here as well, but it's not as easy because the relative difference is lower here. So showing the total on here does make it harder doing those ones. Okay. Which items vary the most least in price? Not so easy to answer with the pie chart either. So you need to look which ones don't vary as much, and you're having to look at the width of the pie. Whereas here you can kind of track through, so we say pick soap. Soap looks similar. Okay. Which varies the most? Well, it looks like the sunflower oil. But you get better feel with this one about the individual price ones. It's not so easy to answer. You agree with the pie chart. Where's the best place to buy milk? That's pretty easy. You go look at the milk, find milk, and then with this one you could compare the numbers, but it's actually probably easier to just scan through and see that it's either Checkers or Pick n Pay, and then we'd have to know the actual number, which you could put above, but then here Pick n Pay. So maybe the combination of these two, because this one actually has the numbers, but if we put the number above, it would be easier. Okay. Which items have we done that one already? Most least in price. For which items is Woolworths the cheapest? Okay, so you can look at Woolworths and look at all of them and compare them. So what is the one where Woolworths is the cheapest? The soap looks pretty cheap. Yes. And bread. Is bread cheaper or is it cheaper at Spar? Bread. Who knew? Depends. So here, you should never use a pie chart. because pie chart requires both angle and area judgments. It's not as easy to compare as the length. And we're inaccurate at judging angle and area, not at judging both angle and area. Much less accurate than we are at judging length. So you could represent the same pie chart as this bar here. I shouldn't do this. As this bar here. That's that pie chart. But you can see I can now fit all four of them over there. So this is a stacked bar chart. It's another way of doing it. It's better for some things, worse for others. The easiest thing to compare on the stacked bar chart is the bread, because it's aligned at the bottom. But the others are a little bit harder. So, this one is better for comparing the items. This is quite nice because it shows you the total. So it's not always that clear, but you're fitting basically the equivalent of 4 pie charts in one over there. And this is not any worse than that in terms of judging the width. Okay. Don't do a 3D pie chart. It's even worse. So 3D pie chart, you're judging area, and the area is distorted as well. So the areas aren't equal. This one has more screen area than the other two. So that's ultimate evil. Do not do a 3D pie chart. Okay. Better is not optimal. You can do a lot of other improvements. We're very good at recognizing logos. That would be far better for, instead of having to read, you would just know, well, this is the black W. Recognize it instantly. You could have some nice little logos for the bread, the olive oil, and I got lazy. Okay. The thing is, optimizing this is a lot of work. Okay, it really is. It can be a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work. But you can show that one visualization is better because of how you have to frame which are the important questions, which are back here. You have to decide on those, and then you see which ones are the quickest to answer with which visualization. Okay. So, the moral of my story is that this has helped me communicate, going into all of this theory, helped me communicate very important, complex information more effectively. I also use it in my slides. So it's not just, it's helped me with teaching as well as with scientific papers. But it can help you with anything where you have to communicate information, technical information to an audience, particularly if they're not working with you every day. But also, doing something completely different in my job, offering to give this course in visualization, going down this avenue has really enriched my life. It's enriched my work experience and given me much better job satisfaction. And I challenge you in the future, if you hit midlife crisis, which is a while away for most of you, but it does happen, is that try and make space for yourself rather than thinking, I'm leaving this, I'm doing something else. Try not to throw away what you've invested, trying to make where you are better. So what I'm trying to say is you probably can at least try to make space for yourself and your passions in your career in surprising ways. So I think this has relevance for a lot of women, but it's a lot of men, a lot of people who feel that they don't quite fit in the workplace. And I think it's very rare that the people who do feel that they totally fit where they're working. So make the workplace fit you rather than you trying to find some other workplace that's going to fit better. Okay. How much overtime did I go?
I'm going to give time for 2 or 3 questions. Okay.
How did you realize you want to combine computer science and chemistry together?
Okay. So I did a lot of programming at school, okay, and I went into computer science, but I never felt totally at home there because I like my real sort of interest is into medicine, really, which is really where I ended up working, but chemistry and so on. And so I was actually feeling quite unhappy, and I did an extra year at varsity and then did the chemistry and so on. But it was mostly because I realized I'm never going to be someone who wants to write a device driver or a kernel. And there are those people, and I respect them a lot, and I did feel inadequate. But then you realize that you're not inadequate, you're just different. So I can code, but I like my coding to be solving a problem that I find interesting, and that's not, as I say, for me, device drivers, which is not to be rude about people who write device drivers. We all need them, but that kind of thing. Yeah. So.
Thank you.
2 or 3, guys. So you've had a question. Can I ask you to ask it afterwards for the other 2 to get a shot? Thank you. All right.
How do you know the difference between you need to make space for yourself and bring something new in to make the space fit you and not give up on what you've worked on, and that just being some fast fantasy?
So that book really helped, the Design Your Life, because it made me realize they make you figure out what gives you energy. And I realized I actually really liked my job. I just didn't like some of the situation I was in, and I wanted more. But if the answer is I really hate my job, then you should move, But I think you can get clarity from talking to people, but also just from working through exercises in a book. And that really, plotting all my paths, made me realize that I actually want to stay in academia. There are lots of things I like about it, but I want to do something else as well. And then I realized the one advantage of being an academic is that you can do what you like. So I just said, well, I'm going to offer a course in visualization. So I had to learn it all, but no one said to me, you can't. Yeah. So, yeah.
One last question. Yes.
Do you think, totally. So if the question is, sorry, I didn't repeat any questions. As my visualization, my understanding of it impacted my publications? Definitely, I think, because you tend to like papers that you understand. You like stuff you understand. So people understand your stuff more, then they will like it more, and they'll reference it, but if something's very, very confusing, it doesn't feel that you have the space to work with it. So it really has helped. It certainly helped me get funding as well. Yes. I'm happy to chat afterwards too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Michelle.